Mark Rogers TV's college football predictions for championship weekend. I really mulled over these games. So if you've joined me in the past for my college football predictions, I mention every so often that I'm not a handicapper. I don't study the metrics. I don't go through the various comparisons. I'll sometimes do some score comparisons, especially late in the season when conference games have teams pitted against each other that have 4 to 5 like opponents. Sometimes I make those comparisons, especially when the games are more recent to the current kickoff. But for these championship games, I really looked at this for 15 or 20 minutes because there were a couple point spreads that I just had huge issues with. Over the course of 20 or 25 games that I pick each week, there's usually a couple point spreads that really jump out as, wow, I think I can take advantage of this one or that one. Not so much here, and I had difficulty in one particular game that I'll get to selecting a winner. So I'm 153 and 110 against the spread. That includes taking Stanford +4. Sorry for no video on that one. I think you can tell from my video output that I put out like 30 videos yesterday. Didn't get to the Stanford pick. I did pick the Cardinal to win the game, so I missed that. And Stanford loses by 3. I take the Cardinal plus the 4 points yesterday. So I'm 153 and 110 against the spread. 153 and 110 against the spread. That's 58.1%. My money line is straight up is 214. And with the miss on the Stanford game, 214 and 53. That's 80.1% straight up. All right, championship weekend. Here we go. I usually thrive in the postseason too. We'll get to the bowl predictions, of course, starting in about 10 days to 2 weeks. Central Florida and Memphis play for the American Championship. Central Florida looking impressive against South Florida last week, although the defense got shredded, and Memphis will do the same in this one. So Central Florida is the better football team. They did win the first meeting, but that was way back when, 40-13. Somebody needs to do a study, and I'm sure it's been done on rematches. We saw one last night with USC and Stanford. The Trojans were the dominant team in game 1. They slipped by Stanford, who could have easily won last night in the rematch. We've got several rematches, 4 rematches in these games over the weekend, and this is one right here. Central Florida won the first game 40-13. They were the dominant team. I like Central Florida to win the game. I was really impressed with watching them, not just offensively, but the defensive playmakers that they have. I will take Memphis with the 7.5 points. Take Central Florida to win this game 38-34. Auburn and Georgia. I see point spreads all over the place, and it's the Kerryon Johnson effect, I believe. I was just on Bovada, and Auburn was a 3-point favorite. I was looking through the various sports books, and that's usually all I go by. I look at the sports books in Vegas, and they have about 8 different sports books listed, and I'll go with the 1-point spread that seems to be the most prevalent. And Auburn has jumped from a -2 to -2.5 early in the week to a +1 or +1.5 is what I've seen out of the sports books. And on Bovada, for some reason, the Tigers are a 3-point favorite. So Auburn, Georgia, I cannot get past, even though I think this is going to be a much different game than what it was and what we saw out of Auburn at home. So we've seen Auburn win 2 huge games, Georgia and Alabama, but both in Jordan-Hare Stadium. I know people love Auburn. People are talking about Auburn might be the best team in the country. Let's see them do it at a neutral site. But I can't get past the offensive and defensive line play for Auburn and how much they dominated. I don't think that changes. I don't think that changes week to week. Auburn brings it on the defensive front. Georgia's got to find defense as well. But Auburn is a notch above. So I like Auburn winning this game 24-20. So take Auburn, and what I see mostly is 1.5 points. Auburn plus the 1.5 against Georgia. Oklahoma, TCU. Sooners routed the Horned Frogs the first time out. Kenny Hill is going to have to play the game of his life for TCU to pull off the upset. It would be easy for TCU to play a very close game against Oklahoma and Oklahoma to still win the game by 15 or 20 because the explosiveness of the offense and a late cover. That said, I'm going Oklahoma 41-34. So take TCU plus the 7.5. Oklahoma wins the game. Clemson, Miami. Okay. Much is made of Miami's injuries, and rightfully so. Amon Richards, Christopher Herndon. Let's understand what Amon Richards brings to the table. A ton. And I know that he takes attention away from the other wide receivers, but he has not been productive this year. He's been injured the entire season, even when he's been on the field. Christopher Herndon might be the bigger issue for the Canes. He has come up with about 40 big catches this year. Clemson beats Miami, but I expect the Canes, after the disappointment against Pitt, to get off the deck, get refocused, play a strong game. Clemson's defense is just too good, but Miami's defense is going to hold the Tigers in check. Clemson wins 26-17. They sneak through, does Miami, in terms of the points. Miami plus 10. Clemson wins the game to move on to the playoff. Boise State, Fresno State, I've seen everything from 7.5 to 10 points. The most frequent line today is 10 points. I'll take it. These two teams just played last week, and Fresno won the game. The metrics say that Boise State's a decidedly better team. So I'll take Boise. I haven't seen these teams play outside of the Broncos, a fourth quarter against Washington State in overtime that they blew the game. And then they got trounced by Virginia at home. So I saw a couple early season games with Boise State. I've not seen Fresno State. Of course, they lost to Alabama early. Boise State wins the game 37-30. Therefore, take Fresno plus the 10 points. And then the game that I really mulled over. Ohio State is athletically much better than Wisconsin. There's a decided difference in the rosters, but Wisconsin plays much better, and Ohio State at times does not play up to its potential, and they have leaks on defense, and they have a predictable offense. Wisconsin is rock solid. The metrics have to be weighed against the schedule. The metrics for the power index and so forth say Ohio State is one of the very best teams in the country. The standard metrics, the yards per game and the yards per play and so forth, especially on defense, favor Wisconsin. They are the number one ranked defense in the country. They've not faced an offense with this kind of talent. Northwestern, Iowa, Michigan without a quarterback, but Brandon Peters did play most of that game, would be the most talent they've seen on the other side of the ball. I got to trust Ohio State's 4 and 5 recruits, star recruits, and Urban Meyer to win this game. But boy, I really think Wisconsin's a more fundamentally sound team. They've played more consistently. Ohio State has been really up and down. And Wisconsin could find a way to get those fullbacks and those tight ends out into that leaky linebacker coverage and make big plays. And then that rock-solid front seven Wisconsin defense to really stymie the Ohio State running game. I know that they ran for 237 against Michigan, but that was smoke and mirrors to a certain extent. They busted it loose late, as did Wisconsin against Michigan with Jonathan Taylor, who was wrapped up for most of the game and then really hit a huge fourth quarter. Ohio State wins 24-22. Therefore, take Wisconsin and points that range from 4 to 6.5. I'll go with for the official pick, 5 points. Wisconsin plus the 5. Buckeyes win it in a nail biter, 24-22. I'm going to trust the athletes to make a few plays, whether it's Haskins or Barrett at quarterback, whether it's an Austin Mack. J.K. Dobbins could be huge in this game. Give the kid the ball 18 to 20 times. He could be the game difference in this one. Or the great defensive athletes, especially along the defensive front, like Sam Hubbard and company, making a strip sack, fumble return, something like that for the Buckeyes. All right, those are the championship picks. We threw in some scores this week as well. Would love to hear from you right here on Mark Rogers TV.